Whoa, feedback.
All right, let's try this.
This is the voiceover for a comedian movie trailer. Take one.
In a world where laughter was king.
No in a world, Jack.
What do you mean, no in a world?
It's not that kind of movie.
Oh? Okay. In a land that...
No in a land either.
In a time...
I don't think so.
In a land before time.
It's about a comedian, Jack.
One man.
No.
When your life is no longer your own.
What does that mean?
When everything you know is wrong.
That's wrong.
In an outpost.
No.
On the edge of space.
There's no space.
A girl.
No.
Two girls.
No.
Now.
No.
More than ever.
Stop it.
A renegade cop.
I hate you.
A robot renegade cop.
You're fired.
You're fired.
No, you're actually fired.
I'm fired.
Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Broadcasting straight to you from a spaceship currently running down a Mariner flying boat that's out looking for Flight 19. Yeah, you guys aren't going home either. That's the creepy part about Flight 19, if anyone wants to look that up, the Mariner flying boat. That's pretty weird. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Strange World, where the truth is often stranger than fiction. I'm your host, Mark Sargent, the creator of Flat Earth Clues, which propose that all of us are living inside a Truman Show enclosed structure, thousands of miles wide. Check it out at enclosedworld.com or just Google Flat Earth Clues. If you can't find it, then your internet is broken. My good friend, personal wingman for the show, is a very tired Jonathan from Jersey. How are you, man?
I'm tired.
Jonathan spent all day doing physical, manual labor projects at home, and he is worn out. So part of my job is just to make sure that he doesn't nod off and like not hit buttons. And I bet you I'll have to do that at least once tonight. Like, oh, let's run the clip, okay, Jonathan? I think it may happen. Anyway, you don't have to talk much, man. But
recorded this.
Yeah. And we'll get to that in just a minute. What we're going to play for you is an interview we did earlier this week with a flight instructor out of Iowa. He owns his own flight instruction company, and he called me up and said, "Look, I got some information for you." And we asked him to be on air, and he volunteered. You know, his name, his company, the whole nine yards. And he's going to come on and say, "Yeah, we're flying above a flat world, a flat Earth, and I'd say you guys wanted someone in the air. This is what we got for you, and it's going to be interesting because it was illuminating for me. He even by the time we got about halfway in, it got pretty interesting. I thought.
Just thinking that, and after this interview tonight goes out over the air, his career is going to go into a flat spin.
Yeah, hopefully not. No, We'll see. I love the fact that more people are coming forward, and we'll talk about that, at the end of the show. But before we get to the interview, which we'll queue up here in just a minute, we get emails and phone calls from a lot of people out there who want to talk about flat Earth. And there was a certain group of people that I was kind of neglecting, because a lot of people were telling me, their thoughts about theories and little loose ends. But there were another group of people that were talking about their feelings and how flat Earth affected them emotionally. And, they got a point. And so I chose one of them, and the guy's name is Randall. I'm not going to say his last name because I don't think I know it. And this is a little excerpt from his email. He sends me actually several emails, but I want to read you this part. So he says, part of the angst of flat Earth is the realization that people once trusted and regarded with the highest respect and admiration have been exposed as liars and frauds, which of course expands and grows, branches out to other subjects, other areas, other people. The realization that things seemed off all my life were in fact more off the chart than I could have previously imagined has been a tough pill to swallow. I've gone through a period of months where I became pretty much non-functional, not able to work or interact normally with people, in a daze of sorts, trying to digest what it was I was seeing with the information presented, running little experiments, driving to spots around the province with long views over the ocean, watching boats, shorelines, in a panic sometimes. I've gone through intense anger, despair, sadness, confusion, even fits of laughter brought on by just the total shock of it all. At this point, I'm okay mostly. I worry about other people who come to the flat Earth idea and going through what most all of us do when it first starts to sink in, that this idea of flat Earth is more than just an idea, that it's real. It really came crashing down on me, and it had moments where it was really hard to digest and come to terms with. And I don't think I could have said it any better. Yes, absolutely right, Randall. Lots of people have told me this very same thing, probably not as eloquently as you. But yeah, it takes a while. That's why I say everybody's got their own absorption process, and some people take days, other people take weeks. And some people still won't face it. The only way to make sure you're not going to get flat Earth inside your head is to not look at it. Be quite honest. So, how's that for an opening letter?
That's good.
Yeah, thank you. So anyway, let's get right to it. We haven't really made up our minds yet whether we're going to just let the interview fade out to breaks, or if we're going to come back and do live stuff. We may do kind of a mix of both, depending on what we're doing and the timing. But let's get right to it with the interview with the flight instructor who says, "Hey, you know what? We're flying over a flat Earth."
Yep, and I'm going to do a lead-in, just a few minutes of us like queuing up and getting to know him, because I think it's interesting. People can hear behind the scenes what we talk about.
Yeah,
actually,
Yeah, and if we have time, we may even do the the post-interview stuff after he hung up and you and I were talking. Maybe we'll see.
Oh. All right, cool.
Yeah, but anyway,
I didn't delete it.
Hopefully not.
No, I did.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then you're just going to get what's advertised, except for the lead-in. So,
yeah.
All right.
All right, here we go.
There we go. If we drop, I'll reboot and call you guys back.
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay. For whatever reason, mine is not, and I do not know why. Let me check real quick here. I want to check by name. Sorted by name. Windows Skype recorder. Yeah, it's not launching.
So, John, what's your special ability?
My superpower is I teach people how to fly airplanes.
Oh, right on.
That's a good superpower. Okay, we'll just run with it. If yours is recording, we'll just treat yours as the gospel and go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read his letter. So we'll just go from here. Ready?
Dear Mark, it's not easy being green.
Thanks. So we got a letter from a flight instructor recently, And I've got it right in front of me, and I'm going to read it to you real quick, and then we're going to talk to him. It says, Mark, I have been listening to your show for the last month or so, and I wanted to share my professional opinion on one of your recent topics. I am a professional pilot and certified flight instructor. I run my own business at a smaller airport in the Midwest. In my previous 6 years teaching others how to fly, I can absolutely verify that your recent guest's claims about the gyroscopic properties of the aircraft's altitude indicator are correct. Robert did a great job in describing how it works, and he was spot on. Never in any textbook or other literature have I read anything about correcting for a curved Earth. We rely on those instruments in bad weather and literally risk our lives, trusting that the instruments will not deviate from straight and level ever. That's in all caps. That alone was proof enough to a well-educated pilot to question everything I thought I knew, and am now very much convinced that we have some serious examining to do regarding the world in which we live. I've been recently trying to work out the math regarding the long-haul flights and trying to determine just how exactly they are fudging the numbers. I will pass along any info should I make any breakthroughs, and I hope he does. So with that, we're going to welcome John Walter to the show.
Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going, man?
What's going on?
Awesome. Doing good.
So you are. Let's get the details out of the way. Let's get your background stuff. So you are currently, and if you don't want to mention exactly where you are, that's totally fine. Our last guest, as you know, has been going the other way and making himself the opposite of anonymous. So
Yeah.
and that would be Navy missile instructor Sean McCrary. So you're a flight instructor out of where?
We're in Iowa, and we're northeast Iowa, and I've got a little business I run here teaching people how to fly. We do all sorts of different commercial aircraft activities, but our primary business is teaching people how to fly, and that's what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years.
Cool.
And so
What type of planes?
just small single and twin piston engine aircraft. Basically, teach you from nothing all the way up through commercial.
Got it.
So yeah.
Got it. And how do you? You'll have to forgive me because even though my brother-in-law flies, I do not know. How do you become a certified flight instructor?
It's becoming an instructor. So there's various levels of ratings you have to get through. Basically, you have to become a commercial pilot first, and then at that point, you can go on to do the additional training to get your flight instructor certificate. And then there's varying levels of instructor abilities that you can, different levels you can achieve. So I'm a certified for single engine and multi-engine and instrument aircraft, which is basically all 3 ratings you can get as a flight instructor. And I'm also an advanced ground instructor. So all instructor ratings you can achieve, basically that's what I have, and I operate here as the chief flight instructor for our flight school. So
Fantastic. Plug it. Why don't you? What's your flight school called in case anyone's in the area?
Yeah. Walter Aviation. So it's simple. Jonathan Walter at Walter Aviation, and we're working our way to become the best flight school in Northeast Iowa. So there you go.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, it's just that's the background on us. I mean, so I've been doing flying for over 6 years now, I guess, and professionally teaching for the last 5 or 6 years, and that's my background. That's where I'm coming from with the listening to you guys talk and kind of picking up some of this stuff and starting to go
Yeah. So when did you? So I imagine you ran into our show on YouTube, or were you poking around and looking at other things before you got to?
Yeah. I mean, I'm well, we're all conspiracy theorists, right?
Yeah.
So looking up other stuff, and just like everybody else that popped up, it was YouTube's awesome feature of just showing you videos that you should watch, and and you start on that long rabbit trail of videos, but yeah, it popped up. I found. I do believe you were the first one that I watched regarding Flat Earth, Mark, and so watched the videos. Just watched 1 or 2, which then got me. I didn't even finish watching your videos. I apologize, but I got so excited about it because the first video was enough to make me start to go, and that's what led me down the path. So I've only been looking at it for about a month or 2.
Oh wow!
just really hitting it kind of hard because just like everybody else, you kind of once you realize the questions that are out there, you really have to kind of just re-examine, and you kind of don't want to go outside anymore, and you just want to sit and research.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How come it takes a guy at sea to make a guy in the air consider the flat Earth? Like from the, all the questions that Sean brought up.
Yeah.
Well. Let me ask this: when did you watch? Nice.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got to break your chops.
No, it's by the way, this is Jonathan on with us. He's busting chops.
Yep.
And what? Well, let me ask you this: Did you actually see the show first, or did you see the clues, the flat Earth clues first?
Right.
Yeah, I watched the clues and started hopping around. A couple of people have been making videos. I mean, I hit the other popular names out there and saw some of those. And then I've been listening to the show, both three shows now for the last 2 weeks. I mean, and Mark, yours maybe for 3, trying to catch up. So
Yeah.
No, let me just say this, and I always kid around like that because I love making people think, but I don't want to make them feel stupid, and that includes the listening audience. But if you think about it, none of us, a good 98% of us, right, 99% of us, aren't at sea as much as a Navy person would be.
Yeah.
Right. So they have a different plane or perspective where there's actually flat, distance to work with.
Yep.
We don't have that on land, and on air, you're looking. And this is my perspective. Maybe I'm wrong. You're looking at other things. I'm assuming when you're in the air, meaning the altitude as being a factor. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, you're kind of moving diagonal. You're kind of moving in a XYZ axis that, again, people on land are not used to moving in that. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, certainly. Yeah, and on top of that, I've been doing 6 years of flying in the Midwest, where it's as flat as it can possibly be. So who knows why that didn't pop up sooner?
Yeah. So you listened to the Navy missile instructor's interview.
Sure. Yeah.
And then you were just following after that the Navy guy and the surveyor and
yeah. I've been listening up, and then it was really. I mean, I've been intently listening and following along, and then. Just in the last one, when Robert was talking about the attitude indicator and the gyro system, I just thought he did a great job of explaining it, and I was sitting there and thinking, he's dead nuts right. It's right on, and then just going through and finally, that's when I was like, you know what, I gotta just throw my 2 cents out there because this is just getting too far along to. So.
That's fantastic, and thank you. What so these guys more or less prompted you to reach out to us, and because Sean's explanation of how the gyro system worked, because they kept comparing it to airplanes.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. I always my interest peaks when that comes up, that subject, and so I'm usually the type to kind of reach out and do that. Actively following along, but I just thought, that they're pushing into an area that I actually know something about, and I'm like, I want to just give my 2 cents for what it's worth and put it out there. So
yeah, and so the submarine guy, when submarine guy was talking about how subs are basically just planes that are underwater. Between that and Sean's explanation, something really rang true to you. So can you kind of break it down for us? Your comparison to how the gyro works in the plane.
Yeah.
And what's going on in your head?
Sure. So, the fundamental, the primary instrument that we use as pilots when we're flying our aircraft, and it doesn't matter whether you're flying a small single engine or a large airliner, it makes no difference. The primary instrument we all use is called the attitude indicator. And I know, just with a little bit of research that, subs have the same thing. Because it's basically what it does, it creates an artificial horizon, which is another nickname for it. And basically it tells you, using a gyro, an internal gyro, it keeps itself straight and level, and it tells you which way is up, which way is down. And which is very important, obviously, when you're flying through the sky. And more important for the airliners when they're flying through adverse weather, when they're flying through the bad weather, they need to know when they can't see the ground where the ground is, which way to go to fly. So that's the use of the instrument, and it operates using a gyro, which you set. When you start the aircraft up, when you're sitting level on the ground, flat and level, you set that instrument, and it spools up. You make any adjustments you need to get it calibrated so it's straight and level, and it stays there for the duration of the flight, and it does not deviate, does not wander whatsoever.
Yeah. So basically, so if I can help, and feel free to break it down even further than what I'm going to do. So basically, the gyro is just like a giant three-dimensional bubble level that you set when you're on the ground. So when the plane, what you're doing is you're assuming that where your plane is sitting is flat and level, and you set a level to say, you know what, show me where flat and level is, no matter what happens in the air. Show me what flat and level is on the ground.
Exactly.
And and I don't know much about the plane ones. Do the plane ones spin up with RPMs like they do on ships, or are they kind of a little bit different?
Well, they're either operated with a vacuum system or an electrical system. Either they're an electrically powered gyro or a vacuum powered gyro. But either way, yes, the aircraft has to be the engine has to be running, which is providing that source of power. So
got it.
Yep.
Got it.
In fact, on most aircraft, a lot of aircraft, they actually have two. They have one vacuum powered and one electrical, so that you have redundant systems. So if one goes down, you're still good to go. So anyway.
You know what, though? Most people don't use gyroscopes like you guys would for that purpose.
Sure.
But I know sometimes they'll put them in like image stabilization equipment, like binoculars.
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing when you hit that button and you feel that little, I guess, it almost feels magnetic because of the force of the gyroscope. And then it's perfectly still, like all the shakiness goes away. So it's amazing what it must do, I guess, for navigation and such. I mean, the way it works.
Oh, it's incredibly accurate. I mean, when we're doing pitch changes up and down, I mean, your standard deviations, bank angles are, if you're flying in the clouds or like airliners, you're using less than 10 degrees of bank and typically, on average, less than 10 degrees of pitch. I mean, we're measuring a few degrees of pitch change, so it's incredibly accurate on a small little 3-inch display, that's just using a gyro. I mean,
can I ask one more question to that?
Yeah.
Is that when they say, like, when you fly by wire or you're using assistance with that? Is it paired up to the gyroscope for that reason?
The fly-by-wire is referencing how you are actually making use of the flight controls. Mm-hmm. So in our small aircraft, we're pushing and pulling on the yoke, which is moving cables and pulleys that go out to the control surfaces. Okay. Fly-by-wire just means you're electronically sending the signals out, but it's still the autopilots and all the systems, the automation systems on the aircraft are all linked up to that to those instruments and still rely on that instrument control. Absolutely correct. So,
but you can turn it off, I guess is what I'm asking, or you can't.
The gyro systems on the aircraft are all linked up to that to those instruments and still rely on that instrument control. But no, standard typically no, it's on.
As long as the engine's running. Oh wow! Okay.
The gyro.
Yeah. I just gotta say, Mark, I didn't know that.
And still rely on that instrument control stage. But no, standard typically no, it's on.
Yeah.
But you never hear about the gyroscope. I've never even heard about this before.
No, you're right. It's downplayed so much because really it's not a very glamorous instrument. I mean, it's it's weird. It doesn't really show you much doing anything at all. It's all it's there is this weird reference point that again has been taken for granted all these years.
And during the training, it's downplayed. It's not downplayed, but it's I would say from the pilot's perspective, it's a very critical instrument, especially when you move on to your what we call an instrument rating, where you're learning to fly in the clouds when you have no outside visual reference. It's the critical instrument, it's your primary instrument. But generally speaking, it's from primary training when you're learning just to be a pilot. It's just a quick little, hey, here's what it is, here's what it does, and now go fly the airplane. No more.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's let me give a perspective here on this, which is because it's an old technology. It's been around for a long time, but it always works, and there's no variation to it anywhere. It's like, oh yeah, either the gyro works or it doesn't, and if it works, then everything's flat and you don't have to worry about anything.
Right.
So it's really kind of a foolproof system. That's part. Yeah, you're right. It's a critical system, but nobody's like, oh yeah, it works. It's obvious.
Right.
But go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I'm just curious. Like now, could you use this on land-based vehicles? I hope that's not a stupid question, or would you not need it? Because
absolutely, there's nothing that says you couldn't stick one of these in your car, and if it was powered up, and as you go up and down the hills on the road, it's going to show you pitching up and climbing and coming back down and everything. It worked identical.
Yeah, which what John and I were talking a little bit before about this, which was that because we always reference the gyro to the curvature of the Earth, but he came up with an interesting take on it, which was you don't need a curvature of the Earth to show how this thing works. All you need to do is fly over a hill. and kind of hug the ground a little bit, and that this thing's gonna pitch back and forth in accordance to it. True?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. If I'm just flying over, say we're out in the Rocky Mountains in the western U.S., we're flying over a hill, and you want to fly fairly low to the ground or something, and as you come over the peak of the mountain and you start to push your nose over to come down the backside of the mountain, I mean, it's obviously going to show that you're going downhill, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same idea as if you're flying across the Earth, on a large scale. It's just that you're doing it, the hill is just an amplified version of it.
Yeah. So here's where it gets interesting. So the gyro, again, if anyone wants to look this up, please look up, the gyro online. But what it does is it creates an artificial, artificial may be the right word for it, a flatness, a flat plane that you can reference at all times. And since it's mechanical, it's spun up with centrifugal force, depending on what you're using, whether you're saying either a vacuum or electronic system. It doesn't care about what you're flying over because it's going to tell you what happens regardless. It's going to tell you when you're pitching and when you're up and down, and but here's where it gets interesting. If the Earth is curved, it should keep adjusting and showing the pilot or the submarine commander or whoever it is that they are pitching up or down. Correct?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And if I'm say, just for reference, if I'm 1,000 feet above the ground,
yeah,
and it says I'm level,
mm-hmm.
and I continue to fly for 100 miles, and as long as I keep it so it says I'm level, after 100 miles in the curved Earth, model, the globe Earth model, my altitude should slowly gain. I should gain altitude over those 100 miles as I pull away from the Earth's surface because I'm on a plane flying out away. At some point, I'm going to leave the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
But obviously, after 100 miles, you look outside and you're still 1,000 foot above the ground. Unless there's been elevation change. But if the ground is flat, you're still the same altitude. You're still the same everything. And I've actually, I was just on a flight here over the weekend, and I thought about especially out here in the Midwest. I mean, it's the epitome of this situation because it's as flat as you can get. I mean, the area that we operate in, within 100 miles of us, I mean, if there's an elevation change of like 100 feet, it's, that's
Yeah.
a big one.
Yeah.
So I've thought about, just take a camera and just to prove it.
All right, we're going to go out to break here in just a few seconds, but Jonathan, I wanted to make a quick note, and that is there's ghosts in the system. I don't know what's happening.
But we're going to continue this interview in a moment.
Yeah. So when we come back from break, we'll talk some more with the flight instructor.
Real Politics with Professor James Tracy. Mondays on Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back to Strange World. I'm your host, Mark, with Jonathan from Jersey, and we're going to get back to the interview with the flight instructor out of Iowa here in just a second or two. But I just want to let people know that even though you might be hearing sound difficulties, it's not as bad as you might think. We'll be able to recover. So, are you still over there, or you're just nodding off, aren't you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
You must be. Okay. All right. I get it.
I forgot how good this was. Now I get. You know what it is whenever we're recording, we don't get to really enjoy it, and now I'm sitting back like the listeners myself.
Yeah. Me too. I don't even put the headphones down. I listen to it and see what because when I'm interviewing somebody, a lot of times I'll be thinking of the next question as they're saying what they're saying, and so I don't absorb it entirely. So
Yeah, even the edit, like when I'm editing stuff and getting the levels right,
yeah,
I don't listen to it then a fourth time or a third time, because that's another 2 hours. I wait till the show comes on, and I'm like, wow, this guy's really good.
cool.
I didn't even know that John was on our show.
Nice. So anyway, we're going to get right back into it with the flight instructor from Iowa. He's going to tell us more about why he thinks the world is flat. And hey, I agree with him. So let's get right to it.
Cool. Here we go.
Just to prove this, to show people that don't get the perspective, like you say, people that don't do this every day.
Yeah.
But just put a camera on the altimeter to show how high above sea level you are, and one on the attitude indicator. And you could do this all with one camera. You could do it in one shot with one camera, and then have it, also kind of partially looking outside so you can see visually where you're at. And if you could just take that aircraft and the pilot held his altitude and maintained the same altitude, you could fly from here. I could fly, 200 to 300 miles in any direction, just about, and nothing would change. Nothing would change whatsoever. And if you do the math, if you're talking a couple hundred miles, I should be gaining, just within 100 miles. What is it, like 6,000 feet or something?
Yeah.
So, and the altitude will be straight and level.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I know there's a lot of people out there that maybe aren't quite getting this. And that is, look, the gyro system, from what everybody has said so far, including John here, only appears to work correctly if it's working on a flat plane. Because if it wasn't, you would just, if you try to keep it level, if you're in a submarine, you're just going to keep going up until you surface. And if you're in a plane, you're just going to keep increasing altitude until you leave the Earth. If the Earth was curved. Yep.
Yeah, the only way it can work is on a flat plane. The only way that gyro would be accurate, the way it is accurate, the way we read it as we do, is if we're on a flat plane.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Cool.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. What else can I ask you? Because that's the and you. Well, let me ask you this then. Because you've been flying for a number of years. Can you, because lots of people have emailed me. It says, well, wouldn't the pilots know? Wouldn't the pilots know? I get that parroted to me all the time. It's like, how do the pilots not notice this? And I was going, well, because it's not a negative, with positive reinforcement versus negative reinforcement, since nothing goes wrong and they take off from one point and land at the other point, and nothing goes wrong and the gyro does what it's doing, it stays level and there's no weirdness happening, why would they question it? Kind of follow. Well, let me ask, why didn't you question it?
Right. Well, it's a great question, and that's the question I'm still asking myself. But I don't have the exact answer to that. I don't know why we haven't picked up on it. But I think one of the things that has to do with is the fact that from primary training, flying an airplane isn't as simple as like you see in the movies. You jump in, push a button, and off it goes. You're obviously doing quite a few things, quite a few tasks before you take off. And the pilot's workload is very high as far as determining where they're going to go, trying to navigate, communicating, make sure the aircraft's safe and operating the system. So I don't know if it's just a task saturation thing where we just, you're too busy focused. You're kind of looking down. It's like you're staring down at the desk. You're not looking up and seeing the big picture.
Yeah.
But
that in the gyro works. It works. It gets you there. Nothing.
Right. Exactly. And if it works, if there's nothing to prompt you to say, well, why didn't it work this time, or why doesn't it work? If the math equation always comes out to be the correct answer, you don't care how you solved it. You just care that you got the answer right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I know a lot of kids in high school that's how they pass tests. I don't care how I figured it. I just know I got the right answer. Done.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you take off in Dallas and land in New York, who cares? Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares how you got there?
Well, and one misconception I think with people in the aircraft, on the airline side of things, especially when you're traveling a long distance like that. Yes, we are flying a long distance, and yes, we know from where we're starting where we're going. But generally, as a pilot, you're not thinking like, okay, it's 855 miles to go to get to LAX. It's like, okay, now we're over, Atlanta. Now we're over. You're kind of working in small chunks. And so you never really grasp the big picture. You do, but you don't. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it does. Wow. So In your mind, was there so you were listening to some of this stuff. So you listened to the Flat Earth Clues, but did it didn't click into your head until they were describing the mechanics in terms of the gyro in this case?
Well, no, actually, what sold me on the whole thing right off the bat was the clues, and specifically the long haul flight, because it had to do with airplanes, and that's what caught my attention. I thought, okay, something I think I know something about, and then all of a sudden you throw that out there, and I go, what? And I'm very used to using these programs, these flight trackers. I mean, we use it on a day-to-day basis. That's how I track my students to make sure they're where they're supposed to be. Sometimes because they track not just airlines; they'll track every small private aircraft.
Oh yeah, I've seen them. Yeah, you can zoom in to any state and you'll see every plane. Yeah. Yeah,
and they're accurate within 5 minutes. I'd say within 5 minutes they are dead nuts accurate. I mean, you can rely on it. We use it on a day-to-day basis to operate our airport here. I mean, we have traffic coming and going. We want to know. We want to be ready for the aircraft when they land if they need services. So, so when you mentioned that, they don't track them over the ocean, I thought, what? Of course they do. I watch them track them all over. But sure enough, I did the research. I've watched the guys on YouTube, that said, no, I sat here for hours and they didn't fly across the ocean.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, I'm going to do it myself, trust but verify. And sure enough, no, they don't. They do not track across the ocean.
Yeah.
That led me on a big, pursuit. I'm like one thing I said I'm still working on, still trying to determine what, how are they fudging the numbers? Because they are fudging the numbers. If you go and get the flight, the duration of the flight, it says it's going to take you 30 hours to get from A to B, but you do the math, it should only take you 15. So what's taking extra long? Well, if you measure that on the flat Earth map, you get a lot closer to the right answer. It's still not perfect, but then again, we don't have a perfect flat Earth map. So
yeah, an excellent point, because people have asked that. They keep bringing that up, and I'm going, look, at this point, the AE map, the azimuthal map, the continents may be laid out correctly, but now we don't know what the scale is.
Right.
It's like, okay, we there's nothing to say, 1 inch equals X number of miles. We don't have that, and nobody's ever mapped it.
And actually, so I thought about that for a little bit, and one of the things that I was trying to determine was, to determine the scale, if, obviously in the northern hemisphere, it has to be correct, because I fly from point A to point B, and if my map says it's 100 miles, I know my aircraft is traveling 100 miles per hour. I can do the math. I can do the time and distance. Forget the GPS. I'm not watching a purple line. I'm not relying on that. I can do the math, and I know it works out.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, I think the northern hemisphere scale is correct.
Yeah.
Now, whether the southern hemisphere scale is correct, that could be totally off, because who flies down there? Nobody does.
Yeah.
And the only people that do, again, like you've mentioned, the airlines. I mean, there is private aircraft that fly in, South America and such, but not enough that I think anybody's going to be noticing. And I don't know anybody else that personally knows anyone who flies down there who can verify that, when they fly, it's,
someone with a private jet, some rich person or a drug lord can, going from southern hemisphere to southern hemisphere, maybe they might notice it, but, they're not going to care. They're not going to report anything.
And it, just like anything else, I mean, if you're, if you're, I don't know how this would be, but if you're on a ship out on the coast and you're going to sail from point A to point B, and, everybody kind of says, well, that should only take an hour, but, but the old timer says, no, it's going to take an hour and a half. Trust me, I've done it. I know it.
Yeah.
You just kind of say, well, hey, he's done it, he knows, and you just accept the fact that that's what it takes, because it does, and you don't question why. Your mind makes up these reasons. It fills in the blanks because it wants to rationalize it.
Yeah. So. And initially, when I had done the clues, I looked at the southern hemisphere, and you probably heard in the clues where I was saying, well, it looks like they're being dropped off the GPS deliberately. And then a lot of people are coming back later and saying, no, man, it's worse than that. It's that there is no coverage there. That you physically do not have coverage because there is no satellite to cover it. And to the point where even I got that map I probably showed you, Jonathan, the sub guy mentioned the old Loran system.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, yeah, the Loran system's probably hooked up, and then somebody else, a different guy, sent the map of Loran coverage, and it only appeared to work in the northern hemisphere.
So we used to use Loran. That was like an old system that, I mean, it's kind of funny nowadays if you have an aircraft, when we buy and sell airplanes, if it has an old Loran in it, you just laugh and you're like, oh, it's a big paperweight. You just rip it out and throw it out, out of the airplane. But speaking of the satellites, this is something else too that maybe isn't as common knowledge. But when we fly around, we're using the global positioning system, which is satellite based as far as we're told.
Yeah.
And so I've been flying along in the Midwest, we're in the central United States. And I'm not talking like way up in North Dakota in the boonies or anywhere else. I'm just talking like, south central U.S. We should have plenty of coverage. There's no reason not to have coverage. I mean, you can stand out in a farm field anywhere in Iowa and get a cell phone signal.
What's the closest big city to you, for example?
Like Des Moines, like capital of Iowa.
Okay, good.
Like nearby, I mean, we're talking dead nuts center U.S.
Yeah.
And so I've been flying along, and all of a sudden it says GPS unavailable, and you get this little flag on your GPS, and it doesn't have a signal. It does not know where you're at. It just temporarily goes out. And you kind of just think, darn technology. The government's probably, some tech guys in there like tweaking the system, pull the wire, and whatever, right? I mean, that's just your rationale.
Yeah,
but
yeah, of course.
In reality, there are 24. This is what they claim. There are 24, I believe, 24 satellites that are dedicated for the GPS system. For the
yeah, if you believe what they advertise,
right?
Yeah.
So and here's the thing: we only need 4. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you only need 3, but did 4 for your altitude and speed and everything else. You only need 4 satellites.
Yeah.
So why do I in the in the center of the United States? Why do I lose GPS signal ever? There's no reason for it. And sometimes this is the better part is that they will actually claim. I've been told this, and not just like from just random people. I'm talking from the FAA, from other federal agencies that. Well, there's a GPS outage or a GPS service is unavailable in these areas due to lack of coverage. Well, I don't understand how you can have a lack of coverage when you have 24 of these satellites floating around, and you can hit everywhere else, but also there's a little pocket, out here that you can't reach. It's floating above you. It should be able to see everywhere that you're at.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
The only way. Sorry, I'll wrap this up.
No. Keep going, man.
The only way that you cannot get coverage, the only time I've experienced a similar effect is if you're out traveling around and you're in the boonies, right? And all of a sudden you don't have cell phone signal, right?
Sure.
So, and then you say, well, yeah, I can't get signal because there's no towers around me.
Yeah.
Right? But you still should be able to get satellite coverage because satellites are sitting right up above you, shooting down at you. There's no reason that you couldn't get it. So, under that whole situation, it kind of leads me to think, well, I wonder if the satellite is not actually up above, but it's ground-based, because that would explain why I can't get coverage.
Like the old system.
System.
Yeah, is it possible that the Loran system, they just retrofitted it, slapped a different sticker on the side of it, peeled off Loran, pasted in, GPS, and then told everybody that in 1995 when this thing went online, or 98 or whenever it was, that it was the new hotness, and that's what we're going to use from now on.
Maybe they figured out the Southern Hemisphere issue and reprogrammed that into the system and launched it and said, there you go.
You know what I'm thinking?
What?
I'm thinking they're using HARP as a carrier wave and increasing the range of these systems.
Nice. But you still get some weird outages every once in a while. I mean, he's talking about outages in the Midwest of the United States. It's a DoD system. The United States should have so many overlapping blanket coverages that you'd never drop out. And when they go out, well, let me ask you this: two quick questions. When they go out, how long does it last? Do you think, on average?
Well, it can be anywhere from just
shortest to longest.
Shortest time, if a few minutes. Longest time, you're talking like 24 hours.
24 hours?
Oh yeah, yep.
Where there's no GPS for aircraft at all?
Right. Well, no, not for everybody. They'll just say outage in this area, or it's more specifically also a lot more common is they'll have certain satellites that are out of service, which will then thus cause outages in various areas and. But there's always a satellite that's out of service. We call them, we'll check. It's notices to airmen. We call them NOTAMs. Basically, we call and check on any pertinent information regarding our flight. And there's a database. There's Lockheed Martin is in charge of this, and they basically have all the information on all the airports and all the activity. And if you're going to fly from A to B, and at your destination airport the runway's closed, right? The way you find out is they tell you that ahead before you take off. Well. They'll also tell you if there's satellites out. And every time you call, there's always a satellite out. Out of the 24, there's always, satellite number, 2022 is out of service. And it's just indefinitely out of service. And there's always these outages.
Wait, satellite 22 is always out of service?
Yeah, I can't remember which number it is, but I mean, you can call all the time, and there's always like this one satellite that's always out. There's always a satellite that's out of service.
That's the Black Knight satellite. We can't catch it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Wait. It's not. For those people who don't know what he's talking about, please look up the Black Knight satellite. The photos are pretty spooky, I got to admit.
I've been good for 10 minutes at least, 15. I haven't said a damn word. I had to make a joke. Go ahead.
I know. No, you can do whatever you want. No, I've got questions, though. Okay, wait. Back up for a second. So when you call... Okay, one, there's satellite... You're saying that that the FAA says that there's 24 satellites monitoring that are tied into the aircraft system. Yeah?
Right.
And
Yep.
at any given time, one of those 24 is out, at least, at any given time.
Yes.
But the number changes. So what you were saying, 22 may be working now, but somewhere down the line, it's not like 22 has been out forever. It's like, 22, that's a piece of junk. It never works.
Right.
Do you find any commonalities? I know you haven't been doing this that long, but
Right. Well, that's the thing. I haven't been paying attention to actually. I mean, I just always remember going, well, that's odd, but whatever. But I never recorded it because you just go with the flow. I mean, it's whatever. I got a trip to go do. I got to get in the airplane to get going. The passengers are waiting. So I mean, you just move along. But
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna start tracking that stuff.
The more interesting thing that you mentioned was, I got to bring this up. So, unless I heard you incorrectly, you're saying that when you call up for the GPS system to see if everything's working okay, you're calling Lockheed Martin?
Yeah, correct.
They run the database for the GPS system?
They run everything for the aviation side of things, and I'm laughing now because I'm realizing how ridiculous this is.
Well,
but
I mean, yeah, they're a plane company, but they're also a massive military subcontractor.
Right, exactly. And so it used to be that you would call, the old system was that there was actually like a local guy, like in Iowa, it was Fort Dodge Flight Service. So you'd call the flight service station, and you were talking to a guy sitting out in this town over in western Iowa, and he was in charge of like the area within 100 miles of him. And he would give you the weather, he would give you the updates on what's going on in that area, and which was great because the local guy had local knowledge and knew it. Well, now you just call a 1-800 number. Everybody calls the same number, and you're just going to a call center down in Fort Worth, wherever.
Yeah, Texas. Yeah.
Yep. And it's just a call center, and they're sitting at a computer doing the same. They just have a better version, but I can get online and look at the weather online and do just as good a job of briefing myself on what the weather's doing, what the issues are. But yeah, you call them, they tell you all the navigational outages. If there's any navigational aids that are out of service. We use other navigational aids other than GPS. We have other forms of navigation, but they'll tell you all that stuff.
You know what? I got to call that guy again, Mark.
You got to call
that guy who's like the VP. I met this guy on the way to LA. We were on a hopper flight together, and we get to talking. And I said, "What do you do?" And he goes, "We're out in the desert. We're building a plane that's like 3 or 4 747s welded together." And I'm thinking, "What the hell are you going to do with that?" I was like, "That's bigger than the Spruce Goose." But this guy knew everything. He was I don't want to say what companies he was with or his name or anything. But he actually said as we were leaving, he gives me his card, and he goes, "If you have any questions about aviation or anything related, just give me a call."
Yeah,
What company did he work for?
I don't want to say.
Can't say.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Jonathan knows people.
Yeah.
I claim to know nothing, and even less in the court of law.
There you go.
Under oath. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I find this extremely intriguing. That the whole GPS database isn't run by a separate branch of the U.S. government. No, they farmed it out to Lockheed Martin, one of the most intimately tied military contractors to the United States government, and they're the ones that tell you. They're the ones that let the FAA know, the Federal Aviation Administration, that that you don't have coverage in your area. That for whatever reason, the supposed 24 GPS satellites that should be blanketing the whole world. Not only are they not touching the three major southern oceans of this world, but there's also blank spots apparently in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And I imagine all over. Anyone that's listening, anyone is tied to this in some way, if you please send me emails and confirm this in other parts of the country, that GPS just drops. It's amazing.
I'm just like, so for kicks, I pulled up what we do where we check our NOTAMs, which is where we check our stuff. You don't have to call them. You can actually just do it via text, like online.
Yeah.
And just right off the bat, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 GPS outages listed for the next 24 hours in various areas.
Yeah.
And this is the kicker. It says basically the GPS, and they give you the number, may not be available within a 463 nautical mile radius centered at whatever location from flight level 400, 40,000 feet to unlisted. It's they give you this whole cone, this radius, but it's like a giant area that we're just not gonna have coverage. And these are like the ones centered on ones for Houston, Denver, Albuquerque, Kansas City, Los Angeles, Salt Lake City. So
you're looking at it right now.
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah. So
it's incredible. Now, can anybody access this, or is this just something exclusive to people?
No, anybody can, but nobody would because they don't know where to look it up. But it's just if you go to the FAA.
Please tell us give us the details so people can look this up while they're listening.
If you just Google FAA, and then NOTAMs, which is NOTAMS, NOTAMs, which stands for Notices to Airmen. FAA NOTAMs. Mm-hmm. You go in there and they've got GPS NOTAMs, they've got the standard NOTAMs, and if you just type in the GPS NOTAMs, you can do a search. And I'll send you a link or something later. They're a little hard to read because they're coded goofy, so you kind of learn the coding, but you can read them. Now, and I'm not claiming yet that there's any, I don't know of exclusively any patterns, but I'm definitely going to start looking at this to watch for any patterns in these, whether it's the same satellite or certain areas or whatever, but
sure.
I just,
because that's what you would expect. I mean, if you have 24 satellites, they're going to have spaced a certain distance apart and in a certain rotation. I'm sorry, a certain orbit, and you'd think the blank spots would show up on a regular basis.
Right. Yep.
But right now, not yet.
I mean, I don't know.
Wow. Which would also mean that the GPS that we're using on smartphones is different than what you're using, because lots of people would, because if it had the same outages as the planes do, then you'd hear a lot of complaints.
Oh yeah, exactly.
People would, they must be compensating with something else, probably.
Well, what they'll tell you, that cars it doesn't matter because you only need 3 satellites to triangulate your position, whereas aircraft you even need 4 because you're in 3 dimensions or some BS line like that. Yes. They'll say, well, that's why we only need 3, so that extra satellite we don't really need that thing. So,
can I ask you a question? How many years did you say you've been flying?
I've been flying for like 6 years, 7 years.
And Mark?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am here. I told Jonathan to fade to break real quick so I could do a summary on the interview, and I forgot my mic was muted. And I have not been drinking. I just want to state that officially for the record. Before we go to break here in a couple of minutes, I wanted to do a quick summary on what you've been listening to so far. And that is Jonathan and I were interviewing a flight instructor out of Iowa, and what he's been telling us so far is, one, that the gyro system in planes is the same gyro system really basically that's in ships and submarines, and they all basically do the same thing, which is it creates an artificial plane reference point, flat plane reference point that you can use. You set it when you're on the ground, and then when you're flying up and around, you can use that to get back to whatever that flat plane is. And he says that that it never adjusts for the curvature, and we're flying over a flat Earth. So when you're up in a commercial airline, and we've known this for a while, but the proof is slowly but surely coming out.
Can I read you this real quick? This thing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just read an article right now. It said civilian GPS required to shut down above certain speeds and altitudes. It says whether it's your windshield-mounted Garmin or your pocket-slung smartphone, your GPS device is programmed to disable itself under certain conditions. If it's traveling faster than 1,200 miles per hour or above 65,000 feet in altitude, it'll shut down.
And is that a new article, or did you just reference that?
This came up October 6th. It just came out tonight. So this is interesting.
That's great. Again, there's so many interesting, and I know we don't have much time until the break, but I want to get this in. There's so many interesting stories that are coming out in regards to the GPS system, every planet you can think of, every aspect of the space program, not to mention that they're tying it to The Martian, the
No,
Matt Damon movie.
wouldn't it give it away that it's possibly land-based and not satellite-based? Because a satellite, what does it care? It's supposed to be... Let's talk about this after the break.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the break. We'll be right back.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back to Strange. Wait a minute. Are we just coming back? Jonathan?
This is the beginning of the show, right?
Isn't this the beginning of the show? Because it's playing the music from the beginning of the show.
Well, our soundboard guy, what's his name? Mercury Retrograde. That's his name.
Yeah, Mercury Retrograde.
Name.
Yeah, he played the beginning. And so it threw me. I thought we were in the beginning of the show. I should start doing it. Broadcasting straight to you. No, I'm not going to do it. Anyway, welcome back to Strange World. I'm your host, Mark. We are in segment 3. My wingman is Jonathan from Jersey. And we were talking, before we get back into the remainder of the interview with the flight instructor out of Iowa, who says, yeah, you're flying over a flat Earth. You and I were talking about the GPS system and its failures and how it could be a land-based system.
Mm-hmm.
So what were you were going to add something there?
Well, no, I was looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, look at the parameters, right? If you have a satellite that's like supposedly 22,000 miles in the sky, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're going 5 miles an hour or 10,000 miles an hour. That satellite can track you no problem.
Yeah.
And it's hitting you from that distance. But if it's a land-based system, like this guy was saying, GPS, it's just like a cell phone tower, right? When you used to travel in your car, you used to have to do a handshake from tower to tower and try.
Yeah. The relay handoff. Yeah.
Right. So same concept. Now the GPS is on a different wavelength and all that, so of course it has a greater range, right? But think about it. Now they're saying 65,000 feet is the cap and 1,200 miles an hour is the cap. I mean, unless you're in what is it, an SR-71 Blackbird?
Yeah, that would be about right. Yeah, the SR-71 could go faster than that, but no commercial traffic can do that.
Yeah, but it's almost like they're discouraging anybody from going up there, period, and using GPS in any way.
Oh, yeah, that's an excellent point, because if
flat Earth, yeah,
if you're going to do your own space program, well, now you don't have a GPS system to help you for any assist.
You're tethered back to the Earth again.
Oh my God! Yeah, it makes no sense. Why would the GPS system cap at 65,000 feet and 1,200 miles an hour? Especially if what you were mentioning in that article where they say at least some of the satellites are at 22,000 miles out, right, which is a huge distance. I mean, that's 3 times Earth radius. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a long way if that's the case. And you're right. There is no reason why it should drop off at all. But of course, I'm sorry. I just get so irritated when I hear when you show me things like this, because
for you.
The what?
I found something else for you. Don't be irritated. I found something that'll cheer you up.
What is it?
Hold on. Here we go.
Okay.
to be the correct music when we come back in this hour.
Nice. See?
Maybe I should just do everything.
We should. No, let's listen to it.
Really?
Yeah, let's listen to it for a minute.
You can climb a mountain. You can swim the sea. You can jump into the fire, but you never be free. You can shake me up, or I can bring you down. We can make each other happy, or we can make each other happy. We can make each other happy, or we can make each other
Welcome back to Strange World. I feel better now. I'm your host, Mark Sargent, with my personal wingman, Jonathan from Jersey. Don't you feel better? I feel better. See, that's the music we're supposed to come back on when we do segment 3. And so we just kind of overrode and took over.
I was feeling out of sorts. Now I feel all right.
Yeah. Rebel Radio. So, yeah, then, by the way, that track, one of my favorites, Harry Nilsson, great track. So, anyway, the GPS system. Before we get back with talking to the flight instructor, and by the way, we're not belittling this at all. I mean, at this point, you got to remember, this is just fun for us because of all the people that we've had on so far in the last, it's only been like 3 weeks. We've had, let's see, a United States Navy missile instructor who comes on and says with all the high-tech instruments he's been using, the Earth is flat. A career land surveyor did big tracts of land for 32 years, and he says he's never measured a curve in his life, nor has any of his cohorts. The United States Navy submarine chief who got out after 20 years on serving on 5 subs, or 5 subtypes, and he says everything from how the sub moves in the water to the torpedo firing solutions has nothing to do with the curvature or the Coriolis effect. Then we got the submarine guy and the missile instructor just to start comparing notes. That was fun, and now we have a flight instructor. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm curious because you're more versed with all the latest videos. Like you always search right the top hits.
Yeah.
Do you know if the people that we've just had as guests, if the same type of people have come out and said that there's a concave Earth?
No, that's funny. You mentioned that.
Yeah,
because
like
I was just I was just thinking of concave Earth the other day,
really?
and I don't know what made me think of it. I don't know. I just glanced at the Bible on my desk, and I concave Earth came to mind.
Well, I was thinking in a concave Earth, like if you're on a Navy ship,
yeah,
it's kind of like that scene from what's that one with George Clooney and them, the storm one.
Oh, the Perfect Storm with Mark Wahlberg and George Clooney.
Yeah, that's the concave Earth. Going up waves like that.
Not to get off on a tangent. We have time to finish the interview. Don't worry, guys. There's I think 30 minutes left on the interview that we did. But I have to go on a little rant about that movie, The Perfect Storm, because when I saw it in the theater, and, because I thought, wow, special effects, right? And kind of an interesting take on this, because this was way before the reality shows about crab fishermen and deep sea fishermen and all that stuff. And when they got to that last scene, and everybody died, everybody drowned, I hadn't realized. I was going, wait, so the entire story up until this point was made up. They were just writing it as I thought somebody survived. I thought somebody lived to tell the tale, and that was not the case. And when Clooney and when they all go down at the end, I was going, "Are you kidding me? I sat through the whole thing just to get burned at the end." Oh, so irritating.
But you know what I'm saying though. Like if you're going to have tidal wave storms and things like that, and it was in a concave or even
when they were climbing those waves, they were going all pretty much 90 degrees straight up.
Remember the wave that came from a distance in Interstellar? Remember how big that damn thing was coming over the horizon?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, so we never see anything like that.
No, we don't.
So that's all I'm saying about that.
You're saying something.
I'm saying I haven't seen anybody out there in the concave community getting military guys and engineers and commercial pilots saying, "Oh yeah,
yeah, they're getting crushed." And I might as well do the push, the all call out there. It's like, look, for anyone. So we've gotten Navy, land surveyor, flight instructor. I've had artillery guys call me. We haven't gotten the on air. I'm working with a valve, an industrial valve and seal guy. On technical specs. There was a heavy. There's a structural engineer that went on Patricia's show the other day, Brian Mullen, and he went on and he said, yeah, kind of like the 9/11 engineers came out. He's coming out and saying, yeah. He's going, I don't know why everyone says there's a curve. We never learned a curve when we were going through college and in professional life. So anyone that's out there, you want to jump in on this, you can be anonymous. You don't have to be anonymous. I don't think it really matters at this point because the groundswell that's coming. And to your point, Jonathan, because all these guys, they're just laying the hammer down on both the debunkers and the alternate theories. Because again, if you're going to debunk this, now you gotta bring somebody to the table that's going to come out and say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm also a Navy such and such. I deal with guided systems, and I can tell you, that it's round. Yeah, fine. Bring that guy. Bring me a structural engineer. Bring me a surveyor. The other side. And if you have an alternate theory, you might as well quit. just quit. Seriously, and you know who I'm talking about. Just give it up. It's over. Sorry, it is.
I'm not anybody. I'm just laughing because I see these comments in the forums, and on YouTube, and I'm thinking to myself, really, you seriously believe this? Like, where's your radio show? Like, where's all your support?
Yeah,
it's a moot point at the.
Yeah, all you have is a few forum posts. That's it, and it's getting drowned out by this stuff. There's a lot, it's and look, and all this stuff we've been talking about, the people that have come forward. It's only happened in the last 2-3 weeks. That people are finally, what's going to happen? I can't wait to see what happens in the next month. Who's going to, it would not surprise me if somebody from a space agency, somebody retired from a space agency, a radio telescope guy, an astronomer, an astrophysicist, because that, when that happens, then, all sorts of hell is going to break loose. So, but hopefully my good friend and possible psychic Jonathan will warn me in advance before it does. We'll see.
Let's get on this so we can finish this.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get back to the interview with the flight instructor. We'll maybe come back before break, and then if we have time at the end of the show, we'll do a quick little shout out to Flat Earth Friendship because we haven't done that in a while, and we can kind of go over what's kind of cool and the new and hot in the Flat Earth world, and there is quite a few things. So anyway, we'll get right back to it.
Cool.
Here we go.
They'll say, well, that's why we only need 3, so that extra satellite, we don't really need that thing. So,
can I ask you a question? How many years did you say you've been flying?
I've been flying for like 6 years, 7 years.
Oh, 6 years. Okay. No, I was going to ask you what you thought. Well, I guess you might still know this. What do you think about using your cell phone up in a plane?
Oh man, I love this one. So I get this all the time. Right?
I know where you're going with this.
Okay, so I'm just going to level and say this. That's a total farce. Okay. The cell phone in the aircraft. Now I know I have from experience experienced issues where if the cell phone is trying to search for a signal, just because of I don't know what the frequencies that everything's transmitting on, but it will interfere with the aircraft communication radio in the sense that I've had it set up where if someone's cell phone is pinging, it will cause a little tone or a buzz or an actual ping, or an audible ping through the headset on the comm radio. Now that's me sitting in a small single-engine airplane with my passenger with his cell phone sitting literally 2 feet from the radio.
Sure.
Okay, and that's the worst I've ever experienced. I've had, and now in all 6 years, I've been carrying a cell phone in the airplane since I've been flying, and I can never recall a time where it ever interfered with my ability to fly the airplane. Number one, they scare you; it's just a scare tactic, right? to make you think that it's going to crash the airplane. It will not do that. It cannot do that. There's no system on the airplane. At least there hasn't been.
I always laugh when they tell us to turn it off, and I look around everybody. And I was like, "You think this little phone, by me turning it on, I can take out the telemetry and all that crap with the plane?" But you're right. And you know what? No, I guess what the question was asked is, have you ever been able to make a successful call from an airplane, or do you lose it at a certain altitude? Because I've seen charts where over 10,000 feet you lose it.
Right. Well, okay. So yeah, you absolutely can make calls from the air. I mean, obviously, we have Bluetooth headphone or Bluetooth enabled headsets, so that you can Bluetooth your phone to your headset and make calls while you're flying. I mean, it's getting pretty fancy up there now.
Yeah.
They get mad at people for texting and driving, but pilots are up there making phone calls all day long. So, but as far as the height. In my experience, typically you run out of signal above 5,000-6,000 feet above the ground. Okay, give or take.
Yeah.
But I've never really tested that. I was actually on a flight back from Dallas. I was coming back from Dallas here about a week ago, and we had 4G up at 7,500. So it was intermittent, and it wasn't there for very long, but we had 4G at 7,500 feet. So
let me just say this, Mark. I remember back. Oh man, when I was younger in my 20s and I was into war driving for wireless signals and phreaking and all this other stuff. Then I joined the phone company and I learned a lot about telecom equipment.
Yeah.
And then around 2001 or so, I remember having a cell phone and how hard it was to just connect from tower to tower when I was driving in a car at a mere 50, 65 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And yet there are these planes where people were making phone calls from at 500 and something feet. 500 and something miles an hour at like thousands of feet in the air. And I was just thinking, man, what kind of friggin' phone do these people use?
I heard about these phones.
You know what I'm talking? You've heard that story?
I heard about these phones and these planes.
Every phone connected too. Every single one.
Every phone connected. People that didn't get through directly, they still got through to voicemail and left messages.
Yeah. And you used to have to pay for minutes. If you connected and dropped off, they used to bill you a minute, even if you were on for 3 seconds. Remember that when you only had 250 minutes and people were up there making phone calls like it was going out of style.
Yeah, that was really weird.
I got to find that article.
Yeah, me too. I got to look that up.
Anyway.
Well, anyway, hey, John, let me ask you another question. Have you ever tried to use, because I don't think it would work, have you ever tried to use your cell phone GPS while you're up in the air?
Ooh.
Yeah, I know people that do that all the time.
And does it work?
It will work. Absolutely,
it will work. Oh, cool. But okay. So if the outage is there, it's going to affect both.
Well,
have you ever tried?
No,
you tried to use it?
I can't say I've ever actually done this, but as far as I would understand it, I don't believe it would affect it. I think I would be very curious to try if you actually had a GPS outage on your GPS display to pop out your phone and see if it picked it up, because I would bet you it would pick it up.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? And then it makes you wonder, okay, what system is hooked to what, and is the one that's on the phone? Because if the phone's still working, the phone GPS is still working. Can you, is it an estimate? Is it believable? Do we know how it's being used? That is wild.
Yes, a lot of testing that could be done, and like I said, I'm fairly new to this, and I hope other people out there are picking up on this and starting to pay attention now, because I think if we start watching some of this stuff, we're going to find some interesting things.
Well, to summarize, then, let's recap real quick. So, from your standpoint as a flight instructor, the instruments you use, flying on a regular basis, teaching people how to fly. Could you even prove it was a sphere if you wanted to? Is anything out there showing you any spherical information at all?
Simple answer, no.
Okay.
Simple answer, no. And I have one more thing I want to bring up on that. I can wait.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So the other argument that we haven't really touched on is the curvature, right?
Yeah.
The actual visible curvature.
The 8 inches per mile squared, as long as you keep going. Yeah.
And I'll testify myself, and I know my other instructor, I mentioned you, I've never seen it. And it's not there. And not only is it not there, but after we talked here recently, I just had a flight that I just did here over the weekend early, and basically, as I was flying along, we were flying about 1,000 feet above the ground, And we looked out, and it was absolutely crystal clear day. It was like we had a nice high pressure, and it was as clear and good visibility as good as you're going to get around the Midwest. And we could look out. We're only 1,000 feet, and in terms of flying an airplane, 1,000 feet over the ground is like just taking a step up. I mean, it's like the typically that's like the lowest you can actually fly legally around most places. Okay, and we could see an area, and I went back and measured it when I got home just to verify. And it was actually further away than I thought. It was about 35 to 40 miles away, and we could see the town, okay? And I'm talking like the actual town. I'm talking buildings, maybe a grain silo that's sticking 50 feet up in the air. But I could see that 35 to 40 miles away from 1,000 feet above the ground. And if you do the math, again, if you're 30, 40 miles away, it's supposed to be about 1,000 foot below the ground.
Yeah.
So in theory, maybe I should have just, in a perfect world, I should have just been able to see only that.
Yeah.
But the kicker was I could look beyond that. I couldn't make out detail, but I could see land beyond it, which means that it wasn't curving down and away from me. It was flat because I could see land behind it.
Yeah.
And it just, and again, another test. I don't know if I need to take a pair of binoculars or a telescope or something up there and videotape it, but we can prove this thing wrong all day long as far as the globe.
Yeah. Wow. So now you're looking when you fly now, you're looking at the world with new eyes.
Oh yeah, my girlfriend and I were on the flight, and and she's a flight instructor as well, and I told you I talked to her about it, and on this last flight I mentioned that. I said, just look around. I said it's flat as it can possibly be, and you look around and you start laughing because you realize that you've been duped for like the last, your whole life, but especially considering you've been out teaching and flying and doing this, and you realize how.
And I'm not making fun of you when I say this, but how did you miss it?
Right. Yep.
Because pilots. Everybody comes to me and says that. It's like, you can't tell me that thousands of pilots all over the world missed it. I was going, well, it's such a huge leap of faith. You don't see it, because it's all around you. You don't get it, because it's the Go ahead.
Let me just say this. Not for nothing. How did dentists miss that mercury silver amalgam, is poisonous? I remember having this discussion with a dentist once. On an aside, just talking about professionalism.
Oh, sure.
Well-educated people do this in and out. And I remember asking my dentist once, do you think there's any truth about, silver mercury amalgam? And he goes, oh, no. He goes, it's not as bad as people say. I know there's a lot of write-ups. He goes, however, the older dentists that used to mix this stuff by hand would develop the shakes and everything later on in life. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's in my mouth. Kind of like Mad Hatters with the hats that they used to make.
Yeah.
But, like you said, the pilots are concerned with all the instrumentation, like John has said, and they're focused on what they're doing. Why would you look outside of that? Like, why would you even look and notice an anomaly that, typically we haven't up until now?
Yeah. And go ahead, John.
I've never, in my professional career, and I know hundreds and thousands of pilots. It's like any other group. And it's a small community. You know everybody. This topic has never ever come up ever.
No.
Wow. And I don't mean to say that the topic of the flat Earth has come up. Not even the topic of the globe Earth. If this was real, why aren't we out putting pictures out, going, "Hey, look, I saw the curve." Hey, look, I saw this, or it's not out there in either way. Just they don't talk about it.
Yeah. Just like the surveyor that I had on. He was going, look, I did my entire career, retired, would never came up in conversation. It's like, hey, why are we, when we shoot these big tracts of land, why are we always shooting a big flat plane? Why it never came up, and why would it? The pilots, I would think, would be like a lot of people. Pilots are smart people, and they would think, well, the Earth's so big that the curve, we couldn't detect it if we wanted to. But the truth is, when you look at what they're claiming to be the curve math, you should be able to see it.
Oh, absolutely.
You should see it really easy.
But they don't teach you the curve math
in
school. They don't teach you that.
No.
And that's the thing. If they tell you, oh, it's so big you can't see it. If they tell you that when you're in second or third, fourth grade, whatever, if they tell that to you, and then, of course, they obviously never teach you the math, when you grow up and you're all of a sudden a career flight instructor, your brain is not going to tell you, oh, I see a curved Earth. I see a flat Earth. It's going to say I see a curved Earth. It's going to make that up because that's what you've been taught from a young age when you were very, easily conditioned.
Yeah, and for people that are just listening to this for the first time and you don't know what the curve math is, it is 8 inches times every mile that you travel by itself. So if you travel 2 miles, it's 2 times 2 times 8 inches, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, and so on, which means it starts growing with the curve starts growing with distance.
Mark, do you have the first few miles, the actual? Because those numbers get confusing when you try to.
Oh yeah, you bet.
Do you have the initial 5 miles?
Yeah,
in front of you.
Yeah, I do. Hang on one second. It is. I've got the chart, and in fact, I can.
Even 10 would be useful because for most people, when you're trying to explain it to them, they can't do math past 10 miles.
Right. No, it's totally cool. As a matter of fact, here, I will send you guys both while we're talking, and we won't edit this out. 1 second.
Again, when you're talking to landlubbers, there's really nowhere that we have to look and see in a 5 or 10 mile range at any given time.
So I sent you guys the chart. It should be there, clickable on the right hand side of the screen. Right? So if you stare at it, what you're looking at is, like 2 miles is 2 times 2, which is 4, times 8 miles. So 4 times 8 is 32 inches. It should be 32 inches of curve. 5 miles would be 5 times 5, which is 25, times 8, which is roughly 200 inches of curve. So it gets and it grows. So like the Chicago skyline experiment, where people are saying, okay, how can I see the Chicago skyline? That's at 50 miles, which on this chart is almost 1,700 feet.
Holy crap!
Yep.
Which is why the Chicago skyline is such a big deal. Because look, there's no building over there that's 1,700 feet. The entire skyline is, if it's a globe, that skyline is gone. It is absolutely, and even if you could see it, it would be tilted so far over, there's away from you. So, and so when you see the mirage, supposedly what they're saying of the Chicago skyline, it's not a mirage. It's really there because it's flat, and nobody's any distortion you're seeing at the bottom of the images. That's just refraction. Did
you put this chart out, by the way, on any links on any of the videos? Because this is the cleanest architectural chart I've ever seen.
You know where I got this chart?
No.
Rob Skiba.
No.
Yeah. He's got this on.
The Liam Chef Show, Thursdays on Truth Frequency Radio.
testingtheglobe.com, but if anyone wants the chart, I mean, these charts are out there, but this is a good one.
No, this is the best one I've seen. Repost it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is out because this has trig on it and everything in the formula with the everything.
Yeah, but this lines up with what John the flight instructor is basically saying, and that is a gyro fixes itself to the straight line. So when you start it, like if you're looking at this chart, you're starting on a straight line. So if you're continuing on the straight line, basically the Earth's going to start to drop away from you ever so slowly, because it's going to want to take you straight. The gyro does not care about the curvature of the Earth. It's going to keep you straight. It does not matter what's going on, which is what Robert and what Sean and Jason were saying from the Navy.
Oh wait! I just figured something out.
What?
Hold that thought.
Okay.
I don't want to disrupt, but I got to put this out there.
Yeah.
What if it's the straight line relative to what we call gravity? Because really, if you think about it, a gyroscope, right, it works with gravity. It almost negates gravity.
It does negate gravity.
It
negates everything. What Jason was saying in the submarine is when it gets spun up, it cares less. It could care less about where you are and what body is underneath you and what forces are involved. It absolutely it cares about what the fixed point is. Once you set it, that's its entire job is to ignore the outside forces.
And Jonathan, because we know that because they sent they sent the shuttle up into space, and the only way they could navigate is they had the gyros to tell them, what their attitude was. So, you can even use their own argument against them in the fact that it must work in a vacuum regardless of gravity.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, the curvature, again, is a great argument, which is why there's a lot of people, including Jaronism, who are going out there and doing tests because they're shooting across big tracts of water. In fact, he's going to be doing one up in Seattle here really soon, and I'm gonna go up for it. I'm going to meet him up here for it. And where, if you shoot across 30 miles, 40 miles, there's, a light beam, a laser beam, whatever it is, you should not be able to see. Or in Sean's case, a radar beam, a 2-inch radar beam. It doesn't matter what any of these beams are. It's not going to punch through the water. If it's a curve, it can't. It's not going to bounce off the water. It's just going to die right then and there because it can't go anywhere. You're not just dealing with a mass of water. You're dealing with you're trying to shoot through a hill, which is the curve of the Earth. And if it doesn't exist, that's how we like on that chart that I showed you there. He's shooting beams at 50 nautical miles. That's that's pushing. That's 2,000 feet. You can't do it, but he is. Which means, that what he's shooting at is flat.
Has anybody ever challenged this? Has anybody, for you, Mark, maybe, has anybody ever emailed you and said, no, you guys are, full of it, like, I'm a scientist and I can prove this?
No, because it's too new. Nobody's really, but it's a good point, and I'll put that challenge out there right now, which is, and I've mentioned this a little bit with the Navy guys. It's like, look, if you're an expert in your field, show me don't show me the math. Because they're going to show you this chart. This chart is from them. They're saying, no, this is how the Earth looks. Okay, fine. What do you have that's not this chart? Don't show me an equation. Show me something physical. Show me a land marker which drops off like you would expect it would. Show me a beam that doesn't get there when it can get there. Somebody mentioned to me, it's like, an easy test would be go into the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah, park a car 10 miles away, turn on its headlights, and see if you can see it. Because 10 miles in this chart is 800 inches. No car is 800 inches high. Car headlights, you should not be able to see it from that far away. I mean, if that'll get through to people.
If I may say, yeah, not to my face, because I don't know, they're just afraid. I'm from Jersey.
Indeed. Again, I'll say this now, and I've said it before, and I'll say it with every freaking guest that we bring on, and that is, how many people do we have to parade out there? How many professionals do we have to get set out there? This isn't like 9/11 with the engineers. This is a whole nother animal, where you've got people from all walks of life that are saying, look, yeah, we've heard about the curve. We just never use it in real life. And what you were saying, John, you said that no textbook, nothing you've ever read from a flight training standpoint has ever mentioned anything about the curvature of the Earth.
Yep. Correct. And I'm actually curious. One of my things, I'm going to go back and read. I want to reread all my books and see when they talk about like the attitude indicator and the gyro, like what do they tell you to do? Because it's when you're reading and you're studying, you just I got to pass the test. You think of practical flying the airplane, but I want to know if they do reference anything. What do they say about it? Because they can't. They don't say it's a curve. They don't mention a curve. So what? If anything, what do they say?
And in flights, and I'm not encouraging commercial pilots to come forward, because I know there's professional issues there. You don't want to necessarily come out and say, well, yeah, the Earth's flat. But when you're looking at this chart here, 100 miles is what did it say? Pushing 6,500. Well, more than 6,500 feet. That's more than a mile in elevation drop. So you would have to adjust your plane. And agree or disagree with me, John, you would either have to adjust your plane down constantly to account for it, but the other argument is, well, there's gravity already pulling your plane down, then fine. You're going to have to be constantly nosing up your plane.
No. You have to push the nose down in order to come down like that. To come down a mile, within 100 miles, you would have to, and you could do the math and figure out what angle that would have to take it, 500-600 mile an hour for an airliner or whatever, but even for a small guy, you have to push the nose down.
And over 1,000 mile trip, it's massive. I mean, you'd have to be, and at 500 miles an hour, you'd have to be adjusting that nose constantly nosing it down. I mean, wouldn't have to do it, but I would, every 15 seconds, maybe every 30 seconds, have these slight adjustments, and you'd feel it. That's just it. We would all feel it if we were doing it. We feel all sorts of stuff when we're flying up there. I did a lot of business travel, and if they adjusted anything, that everybody knew because they were so tied into it.
I just had a thought.
What?
If my flight students actually hear this, because now they're going to be like, this is why I can't maintain altitude, like the curvature's getting me, the curvature.
That's a great point.
That is a good point.
I don't know if you, can I just say something? I don't know if you heard my comment on the last show, but I had an aeronautics class in high school, and I used to, piss that teacher off with stupid questions. Go figure, right?
Yeah, go figure.
And I asked him, I said, when the Concorde goes out, up in, as high as it does, I was like, how come they don't get afraid of getting sucked out into space? And he looks at me and rolls his eyes, he gets a big dictionary or whatever, and he just takes it and he drops it on the floor. I was like, gravity. But in my mind, I was thinking of it like we're talking now with, like, when you fly level, you should be progressively going higher altitude, in a sense. And at the altitude that they were, the height. So even though that doesn't, I guess that doesn't apply now. Back then it was a stupid question.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. It wasn't. No, it wasn't a stupid question, but it was some unique foreshadowing. I'll give you that.
Well, yeah, I didn't know what I was asking, but in my mind, for some reason, I kept thinking like, well, if you're playing, how do you fly level? I wasn't really thinking of flat Earth. I was thinking of a curved Earth, and at the speed that the Concorde traveled, because didn't that thing do like Mach 1, 2? I remember
one high one.
Yeah, but it would break the sound barrier sometimes.
It would break the sound barrier.
Yeah. But at that speed, you would have to adjust without going too much higher, right? Mm-hmm. Unless you're really flying on a flat Earth.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of a title for this video right now. And I'm thinking, what do I say to drive it home to people? It's like, look, flight only works if it's flat. Yeah. something to that effect. Because it was what the Navy guys were saying. He was saying, look, you can't get back to the carrier with the instruments we have unless it's flat.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
You can't do it.
That's another great example. If you get a Navy pilot on here, they could confirm everything I'm telling you and probably do 10 times better job of it. Because
I don't know. You're doing a pretty good job.
Wait, can you explain why that is? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be stupid here, but why is that? Why can't they get back to the carrier without it?
Because the carrier, because your navigation's completely off. The navigation is set for a flat plane. So if the carrier's moving, the plane's moving. What Sean was saying, if you're going out, doing a 1,000-mile mission,
right?
When you come back, if it's a globe, everything is changed. And, you've gone over the curvature. You're doing basically the instruments on a plane. And correct me if I'm wrong here, John. The instruments on a plane are no different than a surveyor in this case, and that is they work. They're designed for a flat system. So, basically, what Sean was saying is, if it's curved, then all sorts of different stuff is happening. So you would get out there, and the curvature of the Earth, the Coriolis effect, and all these things would come into play, and you'd get lost real fast with the instruments that they have, because they aren't designed for a curve. It was something the submarine guy said. I just laughed, and I know we kind of glossed over it, which was, he goes, I never did find that curvature button on any of my instrumentation that I would just push every 60 seconds, adjust for curve adjustment, because it just wasn't there. But we've just taken it.
Well, you know what I was thinking? Have you ever played? I know you played a lot of video games. There was one called Elite. It was a space simulator.
Okay.
And on it, in the bottom of your, I don't know what you call it, I guess your cockpit, you had a circle, like an oval, and you were in the middle of it. And then wherever the ships were, the orientation, if it was like a line that went up, that means they were above you, right? And if there was a line that went below, they were below you, so you'd know where your XYZ orientation in space was. So if they had something similar like that, then when you were going around the curve of the Earth, like you said, right over the horizon, the carrier should be above you, technically, behind you at 6 o'clock, but also above you and increasing in altitude.
Right. Which is what the surveyor was saying. He's going, how can you map stuff on he couldn't even understand how you could do survey work when you were dealing with like mountains, like in the distance, because he goes, you're shooting you're shooting a flat plane, but you're going up in elevation with the mountains, but then you're going down in elevation because of the curvature, because you're going over a hill, because you're shooting, you start to go over the other side. And now my head's starting to spin.
I'm sorry.
No play on words there.
One more thing on the gyro, just to throw this out there, because we mentioned earlier the space shuttle. I was joking about how, they claim that they use the gyros in the space shuttle, right?
Yeah.
And, and I believe the movies and, all that propaganda. But with what we're talking about, if the attitude indicator, the gyro, it stays rigid in space in a vacuum no matter what. So if they're using it on the space shuttle or the International Space Station or whatever, as they go around, because they're cooking up there, they're supposedly doing, I don't know how fast they claim they're moving, but that gyro should just sit there and slowly spin over and over and over. It's never going to tell them whether they're right side or down because they're constantly rolling around it. A gyro would never work for their purpose up in space. Because in orbit around the Earth, I'm saying, as they're constantly rolling around it, it defeats that purpose too. So they've got to be lying. They have to be lying somewhere because it doesn't work in all these situations perfectly.
Wow. Okay, so before we melt the listeners' brains completely in this, because it's amazing stuff. One, flight apparently only works if it's a flat plane. Two, the GPS system not only has giant holes in the oceans, but apparently up to 24-hour dead zones in the United States for no apparent reason, even though there's 24 satellites up there that are supposedly doing this. Three, the entire GPS database system that's routed through the FAA is actually going through Lockheed Martin, a military contractor of the United States. What else is a great little revelation which we've discovered? That your girlfriend's, who is also a flight instructor, is also on board with this.
Yeah, and I've since the last week or so, I've mentioned to a couple of friends of mine who are all pilots, and they're the initial was they laugh for just a second, and then I say, but think about it, and then because we all have the same experience, we've all been up there, we've all looked out, and then they just sit there and then they look at me and they go, really? And I say, think about it. Just think about it. And then they I've talked to a couple of friends, and they're, I'm not saying they're convinced, and I'm not convinced, 100%, right? I mean, I'm just saying that what we're being told isn't true, and they're quickly following suit because it doesn't make sense.
You know why I think? I shouldn't even say this on the air. You could always edit this out, Mark.
No, go ahead.
I think why we like telling people about the flat Earth and looking for the reaction. It's kind of like when you take somebody's virginity away. Like, you just can't get it back.
Well, no, that's good. No, we're leaving that in. We're leaving that in. No, let's leave that in. Here's why.
Because everybody's going to go around looking, who can I de-virginize?
Because you can't. No, because you can't go back. That's an old saying, and that is sometimes you can't go back home because things have changed. And it's the Matrix. Once you've been unplugged, not to use the cliche Matrix thing, but it's true. Once you've been unplugged, you can't go back. Because once you've seen it, like what John's saying, now he flies, he's looking at the skies completely differently. And he basically can't unknow what he now knows. And that's it. Yeah, there's I'll read the letter probably before the show, but there was somebody that wrote me who wrote down, kind of kept a little diary of all the emotions he went through.
I'll give you a better one, and it's a lot cleaner.
Okay.
Because I know you're a movie buff. I don't know if you like movies, John, but remember the movie Excalibur, 1981?
1980, John Borman, but yeah.
Okay. So Merlin, when what's his name? King Arthur's looking at Guinevere, and he's all like, his eyes like watching her dance around, and she comes up to him, hands him a cake, right?
Yeah, the cake analogy. Yeah,
and he says, he goes, biting into that cake is kind of like, looking into the future. Until you have, it's too late. And then he bites into it, and he goes, too late. Because he already saw his fate, what was going to come with Lancelot.
Yeah.
But it was kind of funny because it shows the impetuousness of youth. But in this case, once you go charging down this path in the same manner, there's no going back. You can't even hold people back from. It's like I tell people, don't go down this road. You won't like what you find there.
Yeah. I've told him the same thing. I said, look, if you don't, the only way you can make yourself immune from the flat Earth is if you do not look at it.
Right.
You cannot, because it's a Pandora's box. Once you've looked at it, you've looked at it.
You know what Mark did actually? He actually sent me the whole friggin' presentation on VHS. This girl came on the screen with long black hair, and then I was like, frig it. I was like, it was like The Ring.
Yeah, but you didn't die in 7 days or whatever it
No,
was.
I'm dying a slow death. That's all.
This is seriously, it's wonderful, and I'm glad. We won't take too much of your time, John, because you've given us so much great stuff. But real quick, so your flight instructor girlfriend, because this is notable, because I get a lot of emails from people that say my spouse / girlfriend / husband / whatever. I try to approach them with it, and they look at me, like I've got a bug on my face. But in your case, she was, because she's a professional, she got it. Once you kind of showed it to her and says, "Look, show me how it's not."
Right. Well, and it kind of starts off as more of like a joke. They think you're trying to pull a joke on them, and you say, "Well, look, when you look out, do you see a curve?" And they kind of go, "Well, no." Say, "Well, why not?"
Yeah.
You have to kind of start the ball rolling that way, but no, I mean, and she was, she's very, very bright. She likes to look into stuff, and she likes to question things, which is a good trait. And so she was already kind of on board with other things, and it didn't, it wasn't too much for her to kind of go, okay, I'll take this and run with it and question it for herself. But yeah, for the people out there that say, and I've heard you say this on the show, the people that say, well, what's it matter? Like, oh, I'm going to, wake up tomorrow and still do my job, do the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
That's, every time I hear that, it's, you want to just go.
You want to throttle them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, because it makes all the difference in the world. And for everybody out there, if you are not sold on this, and not that you have to be sold on, but if you're not willing to question this and look into this, I guess, I don't know if there's any hope for you, because you have to be willing to question things. And especially in today's day and age, with the way things are going, they lie. I mean, there's so many lies. There's so many lies, and you need to have your own opinion on things and do your own research. And that's why I love you guys. That's why I love listening to the shows, because you guys, you're not just making a show for entertainment. You're not just making a show to get airtime to talk about whatever you want to talk about. You're out there trying to promote people to think for themselves and to question things and do their own research. And I mean, we just need like 1,000 times more of that,
Wow.
So wait, I don't kid around too much?
Well, you might, yeah.
All right, enough said.
You're the relief, but no, seriously, you guys are doing great. I love it, and that's why I listen, and I think that's probably why a lot of people listen.
Wow. Well put. Thank you very much, man. And again, I'm going to put this challenge out to anyone. Look, here's a flight instructor. Anyone else out there in the flight industry that think they can, come at this and say, it's wrong, that the more professionals that come out on this, the debunkers, if you're just a general debunker, I don't know, seriously, you seriously go back under the rock from which you came, because you got nothing left. Who are you going to say, well, no, I know more, let's see, than Navy missile guy, Navy sub guy, surveyor, flight instructor, who else? Who else do you want out there? And the challenge to any, here's the pro challenge to anyone else out there. Please come forward. If you don't want to be on air, don't be on air. Send me a letter. And if you want, you just sign it anonymous and say, I've got that industrial valve guy who's going to be sending me a letter saying, look, here's why space travel is got some really big problems that they can't explain that come down to mechanical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I second that 100%. And I'm not, I feel that I have a good base of knowledge in what I do, and I feel the same for the other guys that have been on your show. But we're not perfect. I don't know everything there is to know, and we've talked about a wide variety of topics. But the more people that are willing to step up and talk about what they know and put the puzzle pieces together, we can kind of work this out. We can get the right answers, and we can come to good conclusions and stuff. And that's what we need.
Yeah, agreed. And one last thing, and that is to the governments out there that are holding on to this thing. I know there's not that many of you people in the know, but what do you got to lose? Look, it's starting to come out. You're not going to be able to stop this thing. Eventually, there's going to be enough of the social media underground that is going to get a hold of it. Mainstream media, if they don't want to touch it, fine. Social media will take over from that point. But you might as well get in front of it and get in. Look, just fess up. Let everybody know. Look, you held on to the secret for as long as you could. 60 years, that's impressive, especially with the technology that's happened in those last 60 years. But it's over. You can't fake anything else at this point. It is so tough to do that it's, look, help out the people here. They need it, and I think this will do it. So with that, any parting shots from first our guest, John? Any shots? What's your next step? Are you gonna do any more tests? Are you gonna just spread the word? What are you gonna do?
Definitely want to try some more tests. I mean, I definitely want to get a video out there. I mean, I'm a visual learner. That's how I teach my students.
Yeah.
And I think that would do wonders for people. I mean, because especially with what we're talking about, it gets very technical very quick. I'm not that technical, but enough that if you're just listening to this at home, it's hard to visualize some of what we're talking about. So I would love to get a video out there that we can show that's one shot, one camera. Can kind of demonstrate some of these things, but no, I definitely, my biggest thing is I want to find the long haul stuff. I mean, I want to figure out how they're fudging the GPS system. There's a lot of things I'm going to look up after what we've been talking about. I want to try to track down these GPS satellites. There's plenty of things to keep me busy. So
right on. Well, thank you very much, John, flight instructor from. Go ahead and plug your company one more time.
Walter Aviation in Iowa. What's up?
Right on. Anything from you, Jonathan?
No, I think I said it all.
Jonathan from Jersey, a man of few words, sometimes. All right. Thank you very much, and don't be a stranger. Hopefully, we'll do a follow-up thing with you down the road. Okay?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Talk to you later.
Thanks.
Oh, wait, no, he shouldn't have hung up.
What do you mean?
Oh, okay. I didn't know we were going to hang up with him. That's fine.
I dropped him. Was I supposed to drop him?
You didn't drop him.
No,
I did.
I'm teasing.
Oh, okay. So that was cool.
That was really good.
Wow. You got the whole thing? I think I got it too.
Oh, was I supposed to be recording that?
Funny. Shit. So funny.
Well, let's do it again. Take two.
Whatever. Yeah, I could do it if I needed to. But I'm also going to throw in the that Ball Earth map slide.
That's important, but you should put a link to it too. Are we back?
We are back, and we got not even 2 minutes until the end of the show. Couple quick thank yous. I want to say first to Brap. He always seems to listen to our shows, and he catches the mistakes almost as quickly as we do. So that was great. Also, a couple quick little shout outs to some of the Flat Earth friends out there. One would be Seven Trumpets Prepper, who's got like 25,000 followers, and he figured he was going to start building a series of his own Flat Earth parts. And he's already on part 4, and he's meeting with some resistance, but hey, thanks for hanging in there. And who's the other guy? Oh yeah, and the Morgile. I saw he just posted this thing like 7 hours ago. The Morgiles, he bought a bus. He's going to call it either the Flat Earth Mobile or the Truth Mobile. He bought a bus from a church, and he's going to turn it into a rolling, hopefully a Flat Earth endorsement, which will be fantastic. So great, good for you, man. Can't wait to see what it turns out to be. So, and another thanks for you, Jonathan, for staying up so late on the East Coast and making it fun to do the show.
Right on.
Yeah. Well,
Listen, let me say it again. We laugh a lot, but you have to. This is such a great topic, and it should be fun. It should be like sitting around a campfire, know. And,
yeah, exactly. It's exciting. It's fun to tell people. It's not dark and brooding, and we treat it like that. It's fun. It's mind blowing, and it's cool to watch people's reactions. So anyway, hey, you guys, see you next time.
See you soon.
Millions of hearts pounded with each powerful liftoff. The world held its breath through every splashdown. But only 12 men witnessed the beauty, the magic, and the mystery of the moon. Now, with the most extensive visual effects images of the moon ever presented, Tom Hanks, Imagine Entertainment, and HBO take you from the Earth to the moon through the eyes of an astronaut.
What we're shooting was never shot in space. They could never put cameras where we're putting cameras.
Tom Hanks is a big fan of the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I am too, so we kind of hit it off pretty quickly on that score. And so we took that as a kind of a look, trying to capture the majesty and the visual poetry of spaceflight.
His whole mantra was, we need to show people what they've never seen.
We can't do all this work and then take the viewers to the moon in a kind of like haphazard or cheap or normal way. We can't just throw on stock footage because the difference would be too great and everybody would know, and the quality isn't all that great anyway.
And so we were trying to accomplish a very cinematic and a very visually appealing look to spacecraft, as well as capturing the reality of space flight.
The 600 visual effects for the series included miniature photography, pyrotechnics, and stuntmen on wires. Up to 2 months were spent building meticulously crafted models, filmed on a motion control stage built for the series.
Lighting is important whenever you light models because you have to make them look real. Soon I'll be putting in very tiny mirrors that'll be reflecting and lighting small pieces of detail on the model so you can actually see them on film. If you don't pay attention to those kind of details, it really starts looking like, you know, a 1950s flying saucer movie.
Several leading visual effects companies created the historically accurate and stunning visual effects.
The approach we took was to generate three-dimensional models based fairly accurately on a whole series of pictures that were made available to us from NASA.
Most of the photographs taken of the moon just weren't shot close enough. So one of the things we had to do was enhance those photographs so that the craters on the moon, so that the rocks on the moon, the ridges in the mountains actually started to hold up at the closer camera positions. This is one of our textures that we use. The red parts of the texture are the craters that actually rise up off the surface, and the blue parts of the craters that sink down into the surface. And by dropping this onto the texture of the moon that we got from NASA, the viewer could get closer to actually seeing the surface of the moon.
The process of generating a 3D model, as you can see here, allows us to go from a still photograph to suddenly be able to create virtual animation around that particular feature that we've modeled and portray this as if there was a camera on the moon shooting this landing.
Here at Hollywood Digital, we take all the elements and make a final composite. First, an actor is shot on a stage, then a motion control element is shot, which is the model in motion. Then a computer-generated background is made, which in this case is a moon. Here we have the motion control element over the background, which is computer-generated, and then we add in the live actor, and then he's now inside the capsule. And then what we do to make it more realistic, like he's looking through windows, we add a window element. And what we do is we take all those elements and marry them together to make a final shot.
It's not so much the amount of effects that we're trying to do here, but it's the type of feeling we're trying to depict. People really are interested in seeing what this would have looked like if you were an astronaut, and everybody wants to be that astronaut.
Look at it out there. Isn't it beautiful? Look at that. Unbelievable. Oh, my God.
From the Earth to the Moon, Sunday at 8 on HBO.